Welcome to NEK-VT Rocks, and my guest today is
Jenna O'Farrell. I'm the Executive Director of Northeast Kingdom Community Action.
And how long have you been in the job now?
7 years this July.
So you've seen a lot of changes, and now you're about to be clobbered with a whole bunch more that you didn't ask for.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Which is pretty horrifying.
It is.
Actually.
So what is not in the president's proposed budget is our community services block grant, which makes us a community action agency.
Right.
So NEKCA is part of 5 community action agencies in Vermont. We're together community action partnership. The 5 community action agencies are Brock, which is Bennington and Rutland, SEVCA, which is Southeastern Vermont Community Action, which is Windham, Brattleboro, parts of Orange, Capstone, which is Central Vermont and Lamoille County, and CVOEO, which is Champlain Valley Office of Economic Opportunity, which is over in Chittenden County, Addison, Franklin, Grand Isle. And nationally, we're part of the National Community Action Partnership, and every county in the United States is served by Community Action. And Community Action was founded in 1964 through President Johnson's War on Poverty. We are all awarded a block grant by state, and then by state, it's divided by county for your population served. And it's not a huge amount of money. It's our core funding, and it's our most flexible funding. So, for example, at NEKCA, our budget's about $14 million to serve Orleans, Caledonia, and Essex County.
Wow.
The community service block grant is $600,000. So it's a small amount of our overall budget. But it's our most flexible funding, and it makes us a community action agency. It ties us to the other community action agencies and nationally. And we use that flexible funding at NEKCA to mainly fund our food insecurity programs. Our entire programming that happens in Island Pond and in Canaan is from that community services block grant. And our food shelf in St. Johnsbury too, and in Newport.
Right.
So.
And the rest of your funding comes in any way you can hope it comes.
Yeah, almost 50% of our budget at NEKCA is from Head Start. Head Start and Early Head Start, which is a direct federal grant. The other federal funds that we get come to the state first. But Head Start is unique in that we draw down from the payment management system, which is a federal program.
And Head Start currently is one of the endangered programs. Or appears to be. I hope it isn't.
It appeared to be, but it doesn't today. So we don't have any, from January on, we don't receive any inside information. We receive information the same way everybody else receives information. So we're kind of relying on national advocacy organizations that hold Zoom calls and kind of read between the lines, or, we have lobbyists nationally that are in the rooms where conversations happen that try to decipher information. Head Start was initially completely left out or zeroed out. And then when the budget was leaked, and then when the skinny budget came from the president's office, it doesn't mention Head Start at all. So it wasn't eliminated. It wasn't.
It was just non-existent.
It's non-existent. But since then, Head Start has a national Facebook page. Initially, the Facebook page was shut down, and it was redirected to Office of Children and Families. Now it's back running, and it seems like RFK visited a Head Start in New Hampshire recently. There's a lot of posts around how great Head Start is.
Yay.
And how it's fundamental to supporting parents in poverty and raising children and wraparound services. So we know that everything is very uncertain and could change tomorrow.
And you might not be able to ask if kids are vaccinated, but...
Which is a core element of Head Start, is making sure that children have their vaccinations.
I know.
Yeah. So we don't know about Head Start.
Right.
Right? So we're just a business as usual. We operate Head Starts throughout the Northeast Kingdom. We have a Head Start program here in Newport.
Right.
It's part of our
And a very popular program here.
Parent-Child Center. Yeah, and we have a program in Albany, North Troy, Barton, Hardwick, Island Pond, Gilman, and Lindenville. I think I got them all.
It's a big area.
It is a big area to serve. And those are standalone preschool programs.
Yeah.
So, as I mentioned, the one in Newport is part of the Lakemont Family Resource Center. In Vermont, there's 15 parent-child centers. It's part of, and NEKCA, as a community action agency, manages 2 of the parent-child centers. We're the only community action agency in Vermont that has parent-child centers under its umbrella. So we have one at Linden Institute. We moved to the campus of Linden Institute this year, and the Lakemont Family Center here in Newport.
And are you technically overseeing all of those?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Oh, for NEKCA? Yes.
Yeah, that's a big area.
We have well, as you know, the Northeast Kingdom
I do
is the size of Delaware, right? Like we are the
really
size of Delaware,
know.
and with a very small population of people.
I worked for VNA when I first moved up here. I know how
It's a
many
lot of
miles
miles.
I carried. And you must be doing something very similar.
Well, we have programs such as Children's Integrated Services, where we have staff who are doing home visits,
Right.
and they are miles and miles and miles apart that they're visiting families and doing home-based services.
And it's such an important service.
It is such an
really
important
is.
service. Yeah, so for our most rural families.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I did something similar in another country, and I know how important it is.
Mm-hmm.
But it's big miles, and
There's a lot of miles.
it's a lot of time.
There is.
We wish we had magic carpets, but
Right.
we don't.
We don't. And we were fortunate during COVID. You know, we had some extra funding that we didn't have when I started this position before the pandemic. We were able to invest in some fleet vehicles, so staff don't have to travel in their own cars.
That's good.
All those miles, right? Because it is a lot of wear and tear.
Yeah, but you still have to maintain those vehicles too.
We do, but at least we can offer our staff an option.
Yeah.
It's not their own. Right.
And the other programs that you have running, because you now also got something that's been thrown your way with housing.
So NEK has been doing housing for years, years and years and years, I guess.
Right.
And we receive funding through the Office of Economic Opportunity called the Housing Opportunity Program. And we provide, and we're also the region's provider for the Coordinated Entry program. The Coordinated Entry is the intake process where people who are housing insecure can complete an intake and then a prioritization to receive housing support, navigation, and hopefully ultimately permanent supported housing.
Yeah.
So, when there's housing available. In St. Johnsbury, we were fortunate to partner with Rural Edge and open the shelter at Moose River, which is a 20-bed shelter, low barrier shelter. It's been open for over a year. We've had a lot of success. I think the biggest success has been the amazing staff that have committed. I mean, it's a 3-shift, 24-hour program.
Yeah, it's a hard job.
It is a hard job. And we have staff that have amazing experiences and compassionate hearts that really believe in the power of human-centered relationships and really getting to know folks who are in shelter
struggling
and helping. We also at NEKCA have a whole economic access department that helps with financial coaching, financial security, and can help people who are starting to be on the path for permanent supported housing to really walk with them, walk beside them, and serve as a coach and a mentor to help make those transitions to
And sadly
housing.
in Newport, we don't have a program like that. We don't have a facility like that.
We don't have. I guess years ago, before me, there was a seasonal shelter that NEKCA operated. So I hear, and then it wasn't utilized, and the funding was withdrawn from
Right.
lack of a utilization. But I don't think that would be the case today.
And then there was an attempt a few years ago to have a warming shelter.
There was.
Which was bureaucratized out of existence. And now there's talk again of what are we going to do?
Right.
When I assume you're involved in that. At least I hope you're involved in that. Talk about what are we going to do.
So recently, but it does, in St. Johnsbury, it's been a community project, right? Like it takes a community
It does.
to help lift something up. And there's been many renditions that didn't work. And then when finally the stars aligned and zoning had changed, the shelter at Moose River was able to
And meanwhile,
be born.
the best we apparently can do is give somebody a tent and say, go camp, but there's nowhere to go camp.
Right.
Not with any facilities.
No, there isn't.
And pitch your little tent somewhere, you just get moved on. I mean, talk about the endless cycle of impossibility.
Right. And there is a bill right now called H91, which is the VHERF program, which is looking at combining general assistance funds that are that pays for the hotel motel program with the housing opportunity program funds over a period of time, and letting communities led by community action agencies develop regional plans, regional advisory boards, which in the Northeast Kingdom, we have a continuum of care, the housing group, but it would be an expansive group, this advisory board. There would be one in the Newport area and one in St. Johnsbury area that would really design community-based solutions for homelessness.
Which is what we really need.
Right. So the governor spoke at his press conference yesterday. He's looking for some more guardrails for the program, really looking to reduce costs. We're really would like to reduce costs over time. Absolutely. We're been part of discussions on H91 for months. When I say we, it's the Vermont Community Action Agencies, because we all believe that communities can come up with community level solutions for community level problems. And every community in Vermont looks really different, and solutions for Burlington are not the solutions that Newport need.
No, not
so
at
we're
all.
hoping that H91 moves forward and more discussions happen, and
meanwhile,
a transition.
We have a lot of families who are either literally on the street or couch surfing, which for the kids is awful. It's not good for adults either.
No.
Well, and we have single people.
That's right.
And couples out there with nowhere to go.
Right. So that building a shelter and a network system is really important.
It really is.
And H91 would allow some of that funding to be blended and braided and community specific design. So
do you have the resources, if the funding came, to be able to start that process?
I hope so.
I hope so too.
I hope so that, you can't make a bill without adequately funding. And
it happens all the time.
Well,
the number of unfunded mandates that come down the
this
pike
needs to be
makes my hair
adequately
stand on
funded
end.
and monitored over time, right? Like there needs to be some outcomes, and that we want people to be successful, because I think, we don't want to recreate a system that's not successful for people. And if their outcomes aren't strong, that means that everybody involved in the system isn't moving ahead.
Right. And people who are unhoused have no way of dealing with food insecurity at this point, which is such a big part of what you do.
It is. Yeah, no, food insecurity touches many people, neighbors and people on fixed incomes, and knowing when, I think we have a lot of folks who know when our fresh produce is the best, and and are able to supplement their incomes and family and support for their families. I think really happy about universal meals in schools being sustained.
I cannot believe that was even questioned. That makes me crazy.
I think people look at the output of the expense. It's an expensive program, but it's worth it. And it's worth it if we think about,
how can they possibly think hungry kids can learn?
Right. And Universal Meals gives all kids, regardless of their income, their family's income, meals at lunch, for breakfast and lunch at school.
Yeah.
And I think if we look at the amount in any home around parental stress, around getting kids money, actually, if they have to take money to school, or if they have to bring their lunch from home, it's just one more thing that parents have to deal with. And Universal Meals just gives everybody the option in a really equalizing sense to get your meals covered at school.
Exactly.
And families can focus on meals at home.
Yeah. It's more of a challenge in the breaks from school vacations. But there have been programs that have done some of that.
Yeah.
And they did a really good job.
Yeah. A lot of
maybe
schools
it's time
do that.
to bring them back.
Mm-hmm.
At least now. As the cost of food is going up, you know,
It's incredible.
the expenses we were told wouldn't happen are
Right.
going up. You can
Right.
tell where my political views are. Not subtle about it.
Right.
But it's
costs.
real.
It is real.
And if anybody is plugged into Newport or any of the surrounding communities, they have to see it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're dealing with it every day.
We do. We help in many ways. We have, fuel assistance programs through the low-income heating energy and assistance program, which is also eliminated in the budget
Right.
that came out. That's a LIHEAP program.
Yes.
And we are hoping that and the community services block grant get put back into the budget, right? Like we will not know until the very end of September what makes it. But, if we don't have funds to help people heat their homes, that's very concerning. Because
You can't heat your home. Your water freezes.
That's right. Right.
It's just that vicious cycle that
Right.
goes around and around.
Right. And we moved, this year was the first time NEKCA, we moved our crisis fuel assistance program into our economic access department.
Mhm.
So folks could receive financial coaching when they're coming in to do their applications and really trying to look at whole families rather than like an isolated incident, right?
Right.
Like, oh, we're just talking about fuel. Well, we actually could talk about, what is that? How does fuel fit into your financial profile? And do you need food assistance? And are you eligible for other benefits that you might not know? And do you have a child under 6 that could also be served in some capacity throughout the supports
Right.
that we have at NEKCA? It's called whole family approach. So we've been really changing our intake process and how we interact with families to make sure that if they're eligible or we have
They
programs,
get plugged
they
in.
get everything that they should get.
Which you would think would be a common sense way of approaching it.
But even from an individual, like
Right.
as a parent, as a person, like you might just be thinking of the problem in front of you for the day,
Of
right?
course.
Like I just need this fixed.
Which fire do I have to put out
That's
today?
right. And we're at NEKCA trying to say, we're going to help you do that. And
Yeah.
is there other things behind that we also could be helping support?
I'm assuming that you're short-staffed, as is everybody else that I know in any of the social agencies. Which means you have to deal with staff burnout too, because it's high stress and
Yeah.
high pressure.
It is. And I think there's a lot of options out there too.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Yes.
in very similar pay grade or a very
Right.
similar line of work, or maybe not similar, but with better. I mean, there was a point where, Walmart was paying higher than some of our grants were paying.
And that may still be true, actually. It's
It
really
might be,
sad.
right.
But
And there maybe is, there's less emotional stress probably at, doing retail than working with
it's different.
humans that are really struggling. That's hard.
Yeah. How
That's
many
hard.
staff do you have just in Newport?
Oh, I don't know that.
Yeah. It's hard to.
And throughout the Northeast, I mean,
Yeah.
the agency,
sure.
it's about 160.
This is a big area. That's not many.
Well, 160, we're a bigger size human service agency.
Yeah.
Our Northeast Kingdom Human Services is bigger
Right.
as a designated agency.
You have a lot of
But we're pretty
mileage
big.
to cover.
We do have a lot of mileage.
And you offer a lot of programs.
We do. And I think as standalone programs, it's a complicated
Right.
agency. And I think I heard the expression when I was first hired. I went to a community action conference in another state, and they said, well, if you've seen one community action agency, you've seen one community action agency.
About right.
That we have core functions, but they're all built out very differently under a very similar mission. And like Maine, all the WIC programs are embedded in community action. In Vermont, they're not, right? So like some things are very different across, but I do believe now, after I've spent 7 years in community action and visited and partner very closely with all of our partners in Vermont and throughout New England, I don't think that if you see one community action agency, you've seen one. I think the heart of community action, regardless if you walk into NEKCA or Capstone or ACAP in Maine, or we are all functioning from the same core
Same
principles,
belief system.
same belief system, same value based, and a real spirit of communities will thrive, but it takes a community, right? Like it takes everybody's heart and soul, and we hire lots of staff that are in it and grew up in a NEKCA program, or parents were recipients, or they themselves were recipients and have lived experience and really understand the work and are deeply committed to serving their friends and neighbors in a way that's just heartfelt and aligned with their personal values, and then really preserves the dignity and integrity of everybody that comes into our programs.
I mean, community is a core value. It's a really important one.
Right.
It's one that's sometimes hard to convey because there's no such thing as just one community.
Right.
Except there is at the same time. It's the, how do I bring these fragments of community to be seen as one community?
Right.
Because we are one community, all of us.
We are. Absolutely.
Yeah. Which sort of takes me to the next piece that I really would love us to talk about. It's one of the programs that had to get cut recently was your thrift store. That was a big loss for the community. But community came together and said, oh no, you're not messing with our store. We need this store.
We do.
We need you. And it's true.
Right. So,
and look what they've done.
Right. So our community service block grant that I mentioned pays for our food. It also pays for our thrift store. So we also have we offset some of our positions that are not fully funded. So we may have a grant for a position that's a 30-hour position, but we want to make it a 40-hour position for a person, and it's really a 40-hour job.
Sure.
So we have other funds, like discretionary dollars, that we backfill. When we are now anxious about what's going to be cut, it's not really fiscally sound to be dipping into more discretionary funds, right?
Right.
So if we pulled out all of the discretionary funds, we have to backfill with that community service block grant right now.
Right.
The thrift store seemed like, okay, what can we do if we reduce the costs of operations? Because we still pay for the rent, the insurance, like utilities, like all that NEKCA is still paying for. So I always have noticed, and particularly last summer, I was able to spend a couple weeks in Ireland and went to many charity stores. I was traveling with a group of people who love to thrift, and I got to talk with numerous people as people are trying on spending hours in charity stores across Ireland.
Yeah, aren't they great, those stores?
They're wonderful. And really listening to how people, their staff, they're all volunteers.
Exactly.
And what charity the store was supporting, whether it was a domestic violence or wheelchair accessibility. I mean, there was numerous different a food pantry, right?
Both
like
local and national
and
international.
Yes. Yeah. And I was like, okay, so let's talk about the thrift store here. What if we brought it back and had a community meeting and said, how can we staff with volunteers a thrift store that actually serves the community? The thrift store, which makes it very special, is that we offer free, and I don't know if everyone knows this, but we have free vouchers that we give through NEKCA for anybody in need. We work closely with Department of Children and Families for children who are in custody. And we certainly will clothe anyone. So, and our prices are very low.
They are low. They're fair.
They're very, they're very fair. Yeah. And then we offer a significant amount of clothing and merchandise that is vouchered, that, whatever we call it, for people in need. So you're right. Like we were able to kind of circle back and held a meeting, and people showed up, and you never know. And,
of course they did.
And it's taken on a whole new life.
And on Saturday, you had a grand reopening.
It is the grand reopening, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
The thrift store, and people who live in Newport probably know more about the thrift store and the history. I learned more when we had our first community meeting, but I think that thrift store's been open for years and years and
It
years.
has.
And at one point, NEKCA had funding from a Reach Up grant from the state, where
Mhm.
Reach Up participants were able to receive job coaching
Yes.
and worksite. It was a worksite grant and
Mhm.
transportation. And folks were able to work in the thrift store. And during the pandemic, it was like beginning of early 2021,
Mhm.
the Reach Up grants were pulled out
Right.
of the community organizations, and they are all held now in the state offices. So the thrift store at that moment was closed anyways from the
Mhm.
pandemic, and then we chose not to reopen it for the duration there to figure out what we were doing. And then we found the right people and
Right.
at
And
the
you
right
did.
time, and we gave it another go. And I love the thrift store. I'm so happy that we're able to operate it and be a
Right.
community resource for everyone.
Yeah.
And now really strengthening that spirit of community and
Exactly.
volunteerism.
And as the heavy duty cuts come, the spirit of volunteerism, constructive volunteerism, is going to be really important. And I assume that you're looking at ways in which community can be actively involved in
Absolutely.
the rest of your programs.
That's right. I met with 2 women yesterday who are retired and want to do grant writing. And I was like,
Yes, please.
fantastic. Thank you. We have a meeting in a couple of weeks, and
Yeah.
they're going to come and learn more about our systems and structure so they can have a framework for like what grants they want to write for us and how we can tap into
What grants are available.
Right. Looking at foundation grants.
Yeah,
And,
exactly.
yeah, not federal grants. But
Where else do you see the need for community? Because hopefully what we're doing right now will reach a lot of people.
right.
And there will be information at the end of this for how people can contact you and NEKCA.
Yeah.
But the more we can let people know
Right.
what's there.
Donations, if people, any kind of organized food drives, if people feel like they're connected to other organizations and it would have their other organization want to run any kind of food drive that would help and donate to the Newport community food shelf that we have.
Including
huge.
fresh food.
Anything. Everything. I think the turnover is pretty quick.
I'm
We're
sure.
not storing a lot of food.
Yeah.
So that is a huge way of getting involved and involving your community. If people want to donate, donations, monetary donations in a overall to NEKCA way goes into operations, which is huge. And then there specifically is our warmth fund, which offsets our crisis fuel program. And I'm encouraging people, if they want to give donations, to donate to warmth, because that is the dollars that are going to be needed.
So they can be very specific where the money
They
goes.
can be very specific, and that feels like a very specific ask. We serve a lot of people in the community for crisis fuel and furnace assistance. And if those funds are not there this fall, we're going to be relying on donations to help fuel your neighbor. So
That's actually a good slogan.
we've had a statewide campaign for warmth funds over the years. It's on your electric bill if you want to donate. If you have, I think it's a Vermont
Right.
Electric, but regionally now we're going to be collecting donations for the warmth fund moving forward.
Where else do you see volunteers and dollars coming in that can be really used? Because not everybody has money that they can give.
Right. Our Community and Restorative Justice Center across the street.
Yes.
I know that a couple of our staff are here talking
Yes.
about their restorative work and their
Right.
panels. That's a wonderful place for volunteers to.
And we're planning on going in there with a camera too.
Oh, great.
It's on the list.
Right. They have their COSA program, and so volunteers are always needed there. Our Head Starts all have parent councils, but we also have a policy council for Head Start, and it's advocacy for your local community and early childhood. So if people are interested in joining policy council, you don't have to be a Head Start parent to be part of policy council.
Yeah.
And then
You have a garden over at Bluffside Farm too that the Head Start program is working on.
I hear that. Yes, I don't know a lot about the garden. I think we've had renditions of gardens over the years. So we've had greenhouses at some of our Head Starts too.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure about I think they
It's
had potatoes.
there. It's growing.
Was it potatoes?
They did potatoes last
Yes,
year.
I know.
I don't know what they're doing this
I'm
year,
not
but
sure.
they have 2 plots, and the goal is to bring the food back in, which is wonderful. And any
Yes.
of us who are also gardening over there obviously can do stuff to help
Yes.
and donate our surplus.
And to
To
the Lakemont Family Center.
Yes.
They have a very small food shelf area there, but they have the capacity to have fresh veggies too for families
so they would
that are
be
there.
interested.
Yes, and that's where the Head Start program is.
So that would be information that could go out in any of the community newsletters.
Absolutely.
That as we move into summer excess zucchini, instead of hiding it on neighbors' porches, we could drop
Absolutely.
it off there.
You could. We also we do the VITA tax program. And the VITA tax program, we need volunteers every year to lift that up as well. So it's the volunteer income tax.
Right.
For people who make, I think it was $65,000 or less, you can
Yes.
have your taxes done for free. But the way we have a certified person through the federal, you have to do a lot of learning and verifications. But we rely on volunteer support,
Right.
and you don't have to have a background in taxes because there's multiple roles.
Yes.
There's a greeter, there's a person who just checks paperwork. So when that program's up and running,
Cool.
and we have a full-time person that recruits volunteers all summer to do that as well.
That's great.
So.
We're out of time.
Okay. Well, great.
I look at the clock and I thought, oh, it's gone already.
Okay. Well, thank you.
I'm so glad you came in.
Well, thanks for asking.
And hopefully we'll do this again. And if there are specific ways that you can think of that community involvement could be really helpful, the studio here is a resource,
That's great.
big resource.
Right. I think that the way our work has evolved in 7 years, as an agency, about 70% of our work is early education, early childhood,
Right.
working with families. And we pivoted through the pandemic and really
Right.
made sure that all of our families and all of our communities had access to food, really focusing on our food
Yeah.
insecurity programs, housing. We're going to continue to focus our work on housing,
Right.
early childhood, whole family, looking at two generations, both the children and their families, and their parents, and helping everybody in the Northeast Kingdom to grow, prosper,
That's
and
great.
thrive.
Thank you.
It's great. Thank you.